on Atlas Shrugged, a novel by Ayn Rand, the founder of the philosophy of objectivism, which is about admitting that reality is real, that reason is the only reliable tool for understanding reality, that rational self interest is a very good thing, and we are interested in a win win type of relationship with each other, that free market capitalism is the best way of self organizing and organizing the community where the freedom of the individual is respected, and that romantic realism and the depiction of the potential of the human being, of the heroic in the human, is the best form of art. So these are the five important concepts in the philosophy of objectivism. Now I'll continue quoting. Let's try. There are some pages which I saved for later. I think I can quote from here. Yeah, page 861. It's true. I've met the man I love and will always love. I've seen him, I've spoken to him, but he's a man whom I can't have, whom I may never have and perhaps may never see again. This is Dagny Taggart, who was at the Gold Gulch type of utopia, and she's speaking about Gold, whom she loves, John Gold. Is this line shows the style of romantic realism. So that's why I chose to quote it. How elevated it can be, how idealistic it can be, because sometimes people who don't know the philosophy of objectivism well assume that it's just materialistic, and when they think or say materialistic, often they mean very limited, narrow, emotionless, etc. But it's not the case. On the same page, Hank, she whispered, I don't think I can explain it, but I feel that I have committed no treason either to you or to him. You haven't, Hank replied. So this is to depict again. Last time I spoke of this, and in this life I will say that again. Ayn Rand was very loyal to herself. She did not betray her ideals, and in real life as well, she had a husband whom she loved very much, but she also had some affairs, um, at least one. And she approaches these questions as an adult, as a rational, grown up human being who is loyal to herself and to the other person. In the superficial understanding of relationships, or where there is this sacrificial and absolutist approach towards marriage and monogamous relationships, often people are ostracized. Well, of course, when it's about cheating, lying, hiding something, yeah, we can agree that there is something wrong in all of that. However, when it's about based on mutual accord, like through conversations, like emotions fade away. Yeah, people can fall in love, they can have beautiful romances, but often emotions just fade away. So you can either approach it as a rational human being, honestly, and discuss all of that with your partner in a very direct and open way, or you can fake things, you can hide stuff from your partner, and you can think, well, what will the neighbors say? What will the society think? What if I lose my job if I divorce? Blah, blah, blah. And that's already your choice. Ayn Rand, both in her life and in her novels, she chose that integrity, that honesty. And that's beautiful. Page 863. She slipped down to lie stretched, her face on his knees. He stroked her hair. He said, "We'll fight the looters as long as we can. I don't know what future is possible to us, but we'll win or we'll learn that it's hopeless. Until we do, we'll fight for our world. We're all that's left of it." So this is Henry Reardon and Dagny uh, communicating with each other. Now they both understand through during this meeting. They kind of understood it before, but now they, as grown-ups, they discuss that their romance is over because Dagny met someone else, and she fell in love with that other person. But still, they remain not only friends but also allies. Yes, allies who fight the looters, the destroyers of the world. And it's again, it's beautiful when you can start a relationship in a conscious and beautiful way. You may maintain it and you may end and go through the end of the relationship as a grown up, responsible adult. That's beautiful. Makes me think of one of my relationships, and I think sometimes through the life I will share some personal stuff too, just as I did in the past. So I had this relationship with my boyfriend for around 2.5 years. We had a huge difference in age. I don't know whether that was, but I don't think it's about age per se. But he was, well, I could say his maybe immaturity was partly due to his young age, maybe. And I don't know if it's the case or if I'm trying to kind of defend him. So maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was just the type of the person, you know? And I'll just have the door a little open so it's getting hot. So our relationship ended because I was anti-nationalist and I was condemning the so-called heroes of Armenian-Azerbaijani war. For me, those heroes are criminals who destroyed peace and cooperation between the two countries, which existed for 70 years. So I was condemning the so-called heroes of the 90s. And once he asked me, he saw something on Facebook and he wrote me via Messenger and he said, "So this is how you feel about it?" I said, "Yes." And then he just blocked me. And prior to that, I was visiting him, although he was kind of distancing himself away. But I would visit him, I would spend some time, I would go to his workplace and sit with him. He was, what is it called? A seller at a small boutique. So whenever he would allow me, whenever he'd say, "Okay, come," I would go there and spend time with him. But after that, I said, "Okay, then it's over. If this is how you feel, if you don't want to talk, if you don't want any exchange." Although I still had those emotions for him, but I'd say, "No, okay, then this is the end." And it was kind of painful also emotionally, but at times it felt, the Harry Potter, the last movie, when Voldemort is dying and there is this little creature under the seat when Harry is Harry was attacked by Voldemort. For months, maybe 6 months or longer, there was as if in my chest there was this dying creature, this dying thing, which wanted to survive, which was our relationship, and it was very painful. But I said, no, he made his choice, and I wasn't ready to run after him to say, oh, I will change my values for you, or that would be betrayal to myself. Yeah. So I wouldn't fall into that type of stuff. And so it was a clash of ideologies, it was a clash of maybe worldviews. And although the feelings were there for him, I said no. So relationships sometimes are ended in very abrupt ways, especially if one of the partners is very, very emotional. Yeah. And when you can end stuff in a conscious way, like if you think you're not compatible, talking about it, etc., it's of course much more preferable. Although the younger we are, the harder it is. Yeah. And yeah, maybe it's not just about age, but who knows? Lack of experience, young age could be contributing factors to the fact that a lot of relationships end in not in harmonious ways. Yeah, not just like Dagny and Henry did in the book. All right, page 865. It had been followed by a few cocktails at the home of Oren Boyle, with only one unobtrusive gentleman from Argentina sitting silently in a corner, while two executives from Washington and a few friends of unspecified positions had talked about national resources, metallurgy, mineralogy, neighborly duties, and the welfare of the globe, and had mentioned that a loan of $4 billion would be granted within 3 weeks to the People's State of Argentina and the People's State of Chile. I don't remember why I decided to quote this. Maybe to show how collectivist economy works. They speak of welfare and well-being, and then welfare for them means taking loans, yeah, obtaining loans from richer countries. So this is how in collectivism, especially socialism, historically, they were given so much resources by the Western countries. Like the USSR was able to uh, force the Nazis leave the USSR thanks to the United States Lend Lease. And they say that even Stalin admitted that at least once before the censorship started removing that fact in the USSR. But they say that Stalin said once that we wouldn't be able to win that war had it not been had the Lend Lease not been granted to us by the United States. But they are getting more vicious, interestingly, with loans and with grants, with supports. They think that those who give it to them owe them. And this is a very interesting psychological phenomenon. Maybe because they don't want to give it back. Maybe because they develop this inferiority complex. They start attacking those who give them those loans. And in the USSR, the situation was very similar. They started attacking the US more viciously after the Second World War, and there was this Caribbean crisis where uh, they say that an order by Khrushchev was um, given to the Soviet soldier saying fire the missile, the nuclear weapon. They say that the soldier disobeyed the order, and this is how the conflict, the nuclear war, was prevented. Um, And then later the soldier was also uh, sentenced to a prison term for not obeying the order. You know, it was either Khrushchev or someone else who commanded to fire, but the guy who had to push on the button disobeyed, and thus prevented the war. You know. Next, page 866. Mm, okay. So, yeah. Senor Gonzalez had mentioned the smoke of his cigar weaving over the half dozen men who had drifted toward his armchair, that by agreement with the future People's State of Argentina, the properties of Danconia copper would be nationalized by the People's State of Chile in less than a month on September 2. This is about how looting works in collectivism. It can be right-wing collectivism, it can be left-wing collectivism, especially in fascism, in now in Russia, as we see. Well, it's right now. Russia is. They even created a special term, Russism, Russian fascism. So it's very close. Yeah, it's conservative, religious regime, and they also confiscate a lot of stuff from citizens. There's a famous, a renowned independent journalist, Nevzorov, and he left Russia, and his property was confiscated. He had estates, at least one estate. He had some horses, a hippodrome for the horses, I think, and all of that was confiscated by the government of Russia. So, um, conservative and religious right-wing collectivists do that, and of course, left-wing, more liberal and globalist-minded collectivists like socialists, communists, some forms of Marxists, they do that too. So collectivists don't care about the individual, and often they don't care about the property. Yeah, and they justify it with their collectivist ideology. It's for the people, it's for the church, it's for the working class, or the proletariat, etc., etc. Now let me think. Okay, no, Taggart is not interesting, so I won't read that. Page 867. It seemed to him that his brain was a maze where a blind alley opened at every turn, leading into a fog that hid an abyss. It seemed to him that he was running while the small island of safety was shrinking, and nothing but those alleys would soon be left. It was like the remnant of clarity in the street around him, with the haze rolling in to fill all exists. Why did it have to shrink? He thought in panic. This was the way he had lived all his life, keeping his eyes stubbornly, safely on the immediate pavement before him, craftily avoiding the sight of his road of corners, of distances, of pinnacles. He had never intended going anywhere. He had wanted to be free of progression, free of the yoke of a straight line. He had never wanted his years to add up to any sum. What had summed them up? Why had he reached some unchosen destination where one could no longer stand still or retreat? Look where you're going, brother, snarled some voice, while an elbow pushed him back, and he realized that he had collided with some large, ill-smelling figure and that he had been running. So yeah, I'll read a little more, but this is James Taggart, the president of Taggart Transcontinental, and this is his mind. And the previous quote about the nationalization of the Danconia copper, he is behind that nationalization. He wants to take away the copper from Francisco d'Anconia, and it was supposed to be a big celebration for him. But this is his mental state after that evening. And I think often this is how the minds of the looters work. They encounter more psychological dangers, and fear becomes the driving force. Because they do bad things, they expect that others will do those bad things to them as well. Hence their crazy obsession with security, because they are afraid of being poisoned, attacked, and not without a reason, probably because they commit a lot of atrocities, injustice, they steal properties, they cheat, etc. And that's a very interesting phenomenon. So they think they are creating well-being for themselves, but they are also condemning themselves into that state of chronic terror, into living in fear. And it's like spiraling down, and it's dragging them down. And hence, like Putin, he had so much, yeah, a dictator, very rich, very powerful. He could have lived without that war, yeah, but their mind is rewiring, and they think that there's an imminent danger, that terror, they not only live in it, they start generating that terror. It's a form of self fulfilling prophecy. And they make wars, they terrorize their neighbors and their own subjects because they are certain that without it, something terrible would have happened to themselves. And they live with that expectation. That expectation of terror is also religious. If you're a religious person, if you believe in a universe which is governed by an unpredictable, all powerful God that may send a deluge and may flood the earth, that may send fire onto the cities if he concludes that the population of the cities is bad and they are sinners. So that chronic terror, that sense of terror, can be religious and philosophical. It also can be political and moral, based on your own morality and on your own actions. When you rob, when you steal, when you cheat, it's about your moral and political viewpoint. And you can become the ambassador and the generator of that terror, of that fear, of that destruction, which constantly lives in your mind. That's sad, and this is how um, dictatorships often work. Yeah, they need wars, they need destruction, because they become the ambassadors of fear, hatred, blood, and destruction. So if you want to abstain from that, stay away from that, you need to take care of your reason, mind, philosophy, and values, or else you may fall for those other religious or philosophical schools or viewpoints that can lead you towards that type of life of misery, hatred, and suffering. And you can become the ambassador of suffering and introduce more and more and more suffering into this world through your own thoughts and behavior, thoughts, words, and deeds. Page 870. I've never tried to hide that I came from the slums, she said in the simple, impersonal tone of a factual correction. And I haven't any sympathy for that welfare philosophy. I've seen enough of them to know what makes the kind of poor who want something for nothing. So this is the wife of James Taggart. She's an honest woman. She is a creator, and she falsely thought that her husband was like that too. She thought that he was a creator, He was an honest businessman, and then throughout the marriage, she discovered that she was wrong, and he kind of lied to her. He ascribed a few things that were done by his sister, not by himself. And interestingly, this if we interpret it through the lens of gender, history knows a lot of women who were silenced, whose actions and deeds were ascribed to men. So in the novel, this aspect also exists. Although, honestly, if James Taggart had a brother, he would have stolen his achievements regardless of the gender. So I think gender in this context is not intentional, I'd say. Although who knows? Ayn Rand is the author, and she wrote it that way. Yeah, she's a woman herself, and her hero Dagny Taggart. Maybe it was intentional as well, and maybe I just uh, do not understand that fully. But the way Ayn Rand, uh, like her philosophy, she was not leftist and she was not rightist, yeah, neither left wing nor right wing. She has criticism of both. This is why I'm trying to be cautious when speaking of gender, because she wouldn't fit into the left wing understanding of feminism, right? And she criticized a lot of stuff that the left wing was doing. So, yeah, that's the thing. On the same page, 870. Want the crown jewels of the people's state of England? They can be had, you know. That people's state has been hinting about it on the black market for a long time, but there aren't any old fashioned tycoons left who are able to afford it. I am able to afford it, or will be, after September 2nd. Want it? No. So this is James Taggart. He is trying to offer her wife something that he did not earn. So he's trying to accumulate wealth, but he's accumulating his wealth through dishonest means, through looting, through stealing the business of someone else. And his wife, she's not interested in the bounty. She's not interested in that um, stolen property, so she refuses the gifts. But a lot of looters, they live like that. Yeah, they steal stuff and then they purchase expensive stuff to just show off. Putin, he built for himself those fantastic palaces. We know that the Eastern European wannabe dictators like Orban in Hungary, or I think it was Slovakia, who was pro Putin as well, the leader of the Prime Minister of Slovakia, if I'm not mistaken, and he was caught living in a lush hotel room when there were big protests in his country. He was, I think, in Thailand or somewhere in Southeastern Asia at that time. So they just, it's very parasitical, I'd say. They just want to enjoy things that are not theirs, and they enjoy them through the means that they steal. Instead of producing wealth, they steal wealth. Yeah, they accumulate wealth through dishonest means. Page 875. I've never sat through such a vulgar, boring waste of time. Why, Jim? She asked, stunned. I thought it was wonderful. You would. You seemed to be quite at home, quite as if it were Coney Island. I wish you'd learn to keep your place and not to embarrass me in public. I embarrassed you? Tonight? You did. How? If you don't understand it, I can't explain, he said, in the tone of a mystic who implies that a lack of understanding is the confession of a shameful inferiority. I don't understand it, she said firmly. He walked out of the room, slamming the door. So, mysticism is the tool of the looters. They love this superiority game, and they often say, "You wouldn't understand. Yeah, you're too immature to understand." And both in the right wing and in the left wing, this sentiment is very present. Yeah, they say, "Oh, you're not socialist, or you're not nationalist because you're dumb, you're stupid, you do not understand." I was accused of that as well a lot in my community in Armenia, both by the right wing and by the left wing, by the way. There was this pro Palestinian group. I didn't know they were pro Palestinian, by the way, at first. So, drag queens. And I reached out to them because I have a drag queen persona as well. And I was like, hey guys, I would like to perform with you. And it was in my country, the Republic of Armenia. And they said, here we believe in free Palestine, so no. And I was very open about my pro Israeli stance because I'm a rational human being and I cannot support civilizations and governments that want to have me killed because of my sexual identity, gender expression, my atheism, or my Jewish roots, my opposition to theocracy, etc. So, and the same person who was in that collective, he worked at an LGBT nonprofit as well, and he later accused me. He said that I pose danger, I'm very dangerous to all of Armenian and to all Armenian LGBT people. So this collectivist accusation, like I was used to getting it from the right wing, and I got that as well a lot. Like the right wings, the right wingers, the nationalists would say, "Oh, you're a traitor. You did laugh at our national heroes. You do not respect them. You are a traitor." And I was used to, getting that type of collectivist BS from the right wing. But now things have changed in a very interesting way. And so there is this guy from Pink, a renowned LGBT organization in Armenia. And I used to work at Pink around 15 years ago or earlier myself. And there is this guy by the name Leo who was accusing me and who was using that same collectivist argument. I'm dangerous for all, for an entire group, yeah, a group of LGBT people, a group of Armenians. So they love this game a lot. Like they feel strength in numbers. They feel that, and I assume, I think, my guess is there is this inferiority complex, fear of being maybe vulnerable, of being wrong in some way. So there is, whenever someone's ego is not rationally and in the right creative way, when the ego does not develop enough, uh, people with immature egos, I think they cling to groups. It can be the nation, it can be the football club, it can be LGBT people. Whenever, my guess is, whenever the ego is not well developed, whenever the person doesn't feel sufficient in themselves, in himself, herself, then that person clings to groups and that person finds comfort in identifying with some sort of group, nation, church, football fan club, or LGBT group, women, etc., etc. So that's my guess. And thank you for that one thumbs up, YouTube. I encourage others to do the same. Facebook, YouTube, thumbs up. So James Taggart is one of those people too, and he speaks of social progress, he speaks of helping others, especially those people's republics. And in the book, even England, yeah, the UK was turned into a people's republic. And when Ayn Rand was writing this novel, the threat was very real. There was a lot of communism and left-wing collectivism ravaging across the planet in almost all continents. So yeah, that sense of superiority and that sense of uh, not even knowing something but feeling something, yeah, they feel as if they carry some truth and it cannot be explained, and they strive for mysticism. And mysticism in the right wing, it's religious mysticism like Christianity, Islam, depending on the country, etc. In the left wing, that mysticism is about identifying with groups, tarot, and zodiacs. You know, the astrology is very popular as well. So mysticism is the choice of many collectivists because they think that the human mind is not reliable enough. Um, yeah, that's kind of interesting. Yeah, I could talk longer and dive deeper into that, but I'm also feeling a little hungry, so I think today this will be it, and we'll continue tomorrow. Thank you for having been with me. Okay, comments, thumbs up. Let's make this more interactive. I want to learn about you, your opinions. What do you think about Ayn Rand and her philosophy? Have you read Atlas Shrugged? Are you planning to in the future? So, yeah, and I go live almost every day. So, hopefully, see you tomorrow. Thank you. Bye bye.